On a semi-related side tangent from something else that is now a story of a brain. That's like saying a brain is a human, which technically could be argued to be true, as the body is fully controlled by the brain and that's where your consciousness comes from, but technically is not a human by itself. But you do have to ask, if a person's legs get cut off, is that person still a human? Of course, yes. What about their arms as well? Still human. No one doubts that. So is the body what people think of as human, even though the head is where it would get its commands from? Because when people find a head somewhere, they usually don't say it's a dead person, whereas they would if it still had the torso attached. But just a head, they say, oh no, I found someone's head, as if it's not a person anymore, but a belonging of the person. But if they find a body missing the head, they don't call it a dead person either, but refer to it as a body. So as far as humans are concerned in our thought process, it seems for us to think of something as a person, it requires a head, as well as a torso, which if you think about it is what is required to live. Almost like humans are hardwired to think of anything that could be a living human, as a living human. But let's go further and back to the brain. If a person's head was kept alive and conscious, therefore their brain too, with technology available now, yes, it is possible for at least a short while. Would we think of it as a person? We should. But I get the feeling we wouldn't, even if it spoke to us. Yes, I know where vocal cords are, not in the head, but the point remains. So that is a person. What about if their senses were taken away or lost in the procedure? You don't need eyes, ears, taste, feel, balance, or smell to be able to think. So now morbidly we have a person who has been stripped of their body, decapitated, as well as no longer having their 6 major physical senses left on what was their head. But their brain is still very much alive and thinking. The thoughts it must be thinking are haunting to imagine, but possible. So why don't we just get rid of that nasty butchered shell around their brain that is just in the way now, and keep the brain alive? Now we only have a living, thinking, conscious brain. But is this a human? If you found a brain intact on the ground, you wouldn't call it a dead person, but a brain. But when did it stop being a human? When it no longer had limbs, no longer had a body, no longer had external senses as a living head, or when even that was taken away and it was just a living, conscious brain. At what point did the human cease to be human, also known as a person? The answer, it didn't. That is the person, with all its memories and thoughts and ideas and feelings still there. So what if we give it electroshock therapy? The old kind. Take away all memories of when the living brain had a body. It will never remember anything other than how it is now. But it will know something is not right. Electroshock therapy only takes away memories. You will still retain your knowledge and skills, but not your memory of how you acquired such knowledge and skill. So now you are a brain, which you always were, I might add, but now you are a brain without its vessel. Its vehicle, you could say. It's very good information gathering, self-healing vehicle. And you have these skills and knowledge of things that you are incapable of having ever acquired, as you don't remember ever having a body. You know this language that you think in an American's case most likely English. Think about it. When you imagine things, you recreate new combinations of what your senses would be able to sense, what your senses would be able to pick up. Now try to come up with a new sense without making some sort of combination of your current senses. You can't. So now you see how this brain is doing the impossible, knowing what things are, imagining in senses it doesn't understand. Because as far as this brain knows, it never had them. It has no memory of anything. It was essentially born in utter darkness with all the knowledge it had gathered before the procedure. Will this brain be lonely? It knows and doesn't know everything it ever learned at the same time. which includes the feeling that there should somehow be companions. It doesn't know thousands of researchers are watching it 24/7 and they can't with their setup communicate with the brain, but just keep it alive and conscious. Whether it dreams or not is now getting too complex for even me, the designer of this scenario, but I would say yes, as that is a mental need of the brain. Will it dream in 6 senses or dream in simply thought? But back to giving this brain a companion. Let's slightly cut the corpus callosum, the part that allows the 2 hemispheres of our brain to communicate with each other. We don't want to sever it completely or there will be no communication and then we just have 2 lonely brains that will never know they are sitting right together, even being kept alive by the same brain stem and blood systems. So only slightly cut about halfway. Now they feel separate but also connected. The brains now have their companion. What will they talk about? What will they dream about? Will they share the same dream as 2 separate co-op players, or will they have separate dreams? Or a little of both? Will they always be awake at the same time, or will one of them tire itself out faster trying to figure out what is real, while the other got tired of worrying about it and started thinking up a story? Will they make up for their lack in senses by strengthening their own thought process or developing a way to keep track of numbers how you would on paper or a computer? It's hard to think about what thinking would be like when all you could do is think, especially with more knowledge than you could possibly know what to do with as just a brain without its vessel, and now in this case as 2. Can you feel trapped if you don't know you are trapped? Can you feel limited when you don't know you are limited? Can you be a person when you are just one half of a brain? I think very clearly I demonstrated the answer is yes.